Today we are making your good old classic sugar cookies, and these cookies are pretty versatile. You can, of course, make your own royal icing or buy royal icing and do a fancy design. You could use sprinkles, you could do a chocolate drizzle, you could dip them in chocolate. There are a lot of different things you could do with these cookies. So we're going to go ahead and get started. This recipe calls for 1 cup of salted butter at cool room temperature. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and chop up our butter. That way it makes it easier to cream. Cut this too big. Okay, I'm going to throw our butter into our mixer. Now, if you don't have a stand mixer, that is no problem. You can use a hand mixer or you can even mix by hand. It's just a little bit more difficult if you're mixing by hand. Next, we're going to mix in our 1 1/4 cup of white sugar. And we're going to go ahead and start to cream this. We're going to lock our mixer and cut it on 1 for a little bit. We're going to let it start to kind of break up the butter a little bit. And we're going to turn it on level 2 to get a little bit more intensity, break that butter up a little bit better. And then we're going to go ahead and cut it off and start to scrape down the sides. Scraping down the sides is a critical component of making really any kind of baked goods, especially cookies, because if you don't scrape down the sides, your ingredients aren't going to get properly mixed in together, and you're going to end up with some funky cookies. And nobody wants that, especially after working so hard on your dough. So we're just going to do that. Typically, you want to do this a few times for each new ingredient. So we're going to go ahead and lock it, turn it back on 1. And then we're going to crank it up to 2 once we start to see that the sugar and butter are mixing in together. But the butter's still really lumpy, so that's why we want to turn it up to 2 so we can start to kind of cream that butter and sugar together. Now it's looking pretty good. It's looking kind of like the consistency of a sugar scrub that you would use from the Bath and Body store. So we're going to go ahead and scrape all that down. Scrape the sides again. And we're going to mix it again. We're going to turn it on 1. And we're going to turn it up just for about 10 seconds. So it looks really thick and really clean together like this. So now more like a body butter consistency. So next we are going to add our eggs and our vanilla. Now, for this recipe, we're going to use just your classic vanilla that you get from the store. Typically, at Cookie Connection, we use a powdered vanilla, which is more of a gourmet vanilla. If you're looking to make gourmet cookies, that's a great option. Just make sure you're getting your conversions right on that. And for this recipe, we're going to use 1 whole egg and 1 egg yolk. And that will help us to create more of a dense cookie, something that's a little less flat. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Oops. And about 4. That's what the kids are for, all right? All right, now we've got our egg and our egg yolk. And we're going to go ahead and dump it in there. It's always a good idea to pre-crack your eggs. And that way, if you get any shells in that mixture, you can go ahead and get those shells out. And I'll try not to be OCD, but nobody wants a mess when they're trying to bake. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that up. All right. Now we're going to get this mixed in. We're going to start at 1, kind of break up that egg yolk. Once it looks pretty good and broken up, we are going to turn it up to 2. Start to get it mixed in here. I'm going to show you part of why it's great to scrape. So down here you can see where you've got the egg yolk, and up here, no egg yolk. So we need to get this all off and get that all in there, and then scrape our sides so that all of the ingredients can get properly mixed in. When I first started making cookies, I didn't know about this, and I ended up with some pretty funky cookies. So it's always good to keep consistency and to make sure that each cookie has the proper ingredients that it needs. All right, we're going to go ahead and turn that on there. And we're going to crank it for 2. Just kind of let it mix there a little bit. And finally, we're going to do the final cleaning on 3. Checking the bottom to make sure everything's mixed in. Looks great. Smells great. Okay. Next, we're going to do our dry ingredients. A good rule of thumb with your dry ingredients is to mix them in a separate bowl. Now, this ensures that all of whatever you're doing in your dry ingredients get properly mixed in to the dough. Because once you put that dry into the wet, it's going to start to clump and stick. And again, you want your cookies to be consistent, and each one needs to have the proper baking powder, baking soda, whatever it is you're using. So for this recipe, we needed 300 grams or 2.5 cups of flour. Really, you can use whatever kind of flour you have. Even if you're gluten-free, you can use gluten-free flour. And we'll get into that later on the channel of doing different conversions into gluten-free and dairy-free. So this recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of baking powder. So we've got 1 there. And we're going to go ahead and get our second. And I love this handy-dandy scraper on the side. So 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And we're going to take our whisk and whisk it up. You can hand whisk it. You can use a hand mixer with the whisk, or you can use a stand mixer, whatever you're feeling. But really, you can use a hand whisk and that'll do just fine, as long as you're mixing it in well. And I love these sugar cookies because they're really easy. All right, now, when you have a wide-lipped bowl, you don't want to just dump it into this bowl because it's going to spill all over the place. And that's no fun. Then you don't know how much flour and baking powder you're actually getting into the cookie. And baking really is a science. So you don't want to mess it up because then you'll just have to dump it and start all over. So what I like to do is I like to take a smaller measuring cup and just kind of dump it in there, keeping it towards the middle. Dump it on your little mixing wand if you need to. And once you get down to not too much, you can go ahead and safely dump it in then. You can even use your glove hand to get it, or you can just tap it along the side like that. Now you're going to bring that down and lock it and turn it on 1. Never want to turn the mixer on any higher than 1 when you incorporate the flour, because A, the flour is going to fly everywhere, and B, if you overmix your cookie dough, your cookies are going to be really crumbly and just a weird texture, weird consistency, and in some cases it even messes with the taste. So we're going to carefully scrape that down. As you can see, the flour's incorporated into the dough, but not completely mixed in. So at this point, we want to go ahead and scrape our sides, because we've got dough all over, flour rather, all over the sides of the bowl. Then we're going to scrape our spatula, just to get all the good stuff. Then we're going to lock it and turn it on 1. And if you're adding anything into your dough, like chocolate chips, fruit, any kind of thing like that, that last scrape that we did is where we're going to want to incorporate that. So I'm checking and I see a little bit of flour at the bottom. When I go to pull up, I see that this could be a problem when I go to scrape it. It could fall out of the bowl. I'm going to go ahead and just scrape it down here, just so that doesn't happen. And then we're going to mix it one more time, because you want to make sure that you're getting all that flour and sugar and butter and whatever it is that's at the bottom into your dough. We're not going to mix it long because it's basically all mixed together. We just want to make sure we get all the ingredients incorporated. All right, we're going to go ahead and cut it off. And at this point, as you can see, it's a nice thick dough, and we can go ahead and form our dough balls.